The world is in a climate crisis, and all industries must do their part to reach zero emissions. Maritime trade is critical to today's society, but is also responsible for 2.8% of all greenhouse gases. A future where global trade reaches zero is possible, but how do we actually get there? I'm Lora Jakobsen, Zeronorth's Chief Purpose Activist and an expert in sustainable shipping. In Navigating Zero, I'm sitting down with thought leaders to explore the inner workings of global trade, its massive impact on our society, and the obstacles it faces navigating its way to zero. Enterprises that move cargo across the sea are well placed to influence the direction of sustainable practices in shipping. They are the first movers, testing new technologies and implementing new practices so that change can happen. This commitment to making an impact is also what inspires second and third movers. If we're going to get to zero, we need to support the first movers who lead by example. My guest today is Jan Dieleman, president of Cargill Ocean Transportation. Cargill is a global food, agriculture, and bioindustrial specialist. Cargill was founded 155 years ago and currently operates in 70 countries and regions. It is the largest privately held company in the United States in terms of revenue. Jan has been with Cargill for over 24 years and has seen regulations and sustainability practices come and go. He has extensive experience in supply chain management at Cargill, but also works tirelessly towards sustainable and green initiatives as chair of the Global Maritime Forum and through his board role at RightShip. But let's go back to 1999 when Jan first started his career. Jan, what was the industry approach to green global trade at that time?
I think if you take the late 90s, early 2000s, that was when China really started to be a factor. And you started seeing that in commodity markets, you start seeing that in freight markets. And what that meant, I think, was that there wasn't really a strong focus on saving fuel or emissions. It was all around making sure we're moving products around. So that was done in that way. I think it was also the time where there wasn't really transparency. I think it was an important piece. And I think it was also the supply chain was much more siloed, I would say. Certain things were really considered as an owner's matter. Some were really labeled as a charter's matter. And that's where kind of it stopped. And if you look at today, that's completely different, right? If you talk about transparency, you talk about drivers, you talk about also global trade that is not booming as fast as it was in those days.
I'm curious to know about when you noticed that decarbonization policies and regulations started to have an influence on the business that you do.
Within Cargill, we've always had a focus on what we tend to call doing the right thing. And that includes very much an environmental component. I think the reality is in the beginning, that wasn't that clear. There was no discussions on CO2, decarbonization, et cetera, et cetera. And what I remember vividly is a moment, and that was in 2016, actually, when we as Ocean Transportation start going through a strategy review. And this was a period when shipping was actually not making any money and everything was complicated. And the two things that were standing out was one, is that digitalization we felt was this time really going to come to the industry and actually disrupt us. And the other thing is we felt that something, and we called it green at the time, and nowadays people call it more decarbonization. There was something going on in that area. And this was the time when in the Paris Agreement, shipping was excluded because it was a hard to abate sector, like 2 or 3 other ones. And that's when we started to really focus on measuring our carbon footprint. Because to be honest, before that, we didn't have an idea what our carbon footprint in shipping actually was. And we started creating the transparency, we started putting it out, and we made some mistakes and we improved it. And we started to learn a lot. And that's also the time when we actually started dedicating some resources to this and trying to somehow figure out what this could mean. And I think we were early on it, but I don't think we really grasped what we were really looking at that time.